Ladies and gentlemen, this morning I come before you with a message that is not mine alone, but one entrusted to me by the divine. On this 21st day of September, God has spoken, and I am here to share his words through a prayer that will awaken your spirit, ignite your faith, and remind you of the power that lives within you. Today is not just another morning, it is a sacred invitation to listen, reflect, and rise. God's timing is perfect. This is a truth that the universe whispers softly into our ears, a truth that often challenges our human impatience, a truth that demands from us a surrender of control, a relinquishment of our desire to orchestrate every single moment of our lives. From the moment we open our eyes to the first light of morning, we are confronted with the illusion that we are the masters of our destiny, that our plans, our schedules, our timelines, and our expectations must be fulfilled exactly as we imagine them. Yet life, in its infinite wisdom, teaches us that control is but an illusion, and that the divine clock ticks to a rhythm far beyond the comprehension of our minds. There is a season for everything, a moment for every purpose, and an invisible hand that guides the unfolding of events in ways that are sometimes imperceptible, sometimes subtle, and sometimes astonishingly obvious. We often do not see it in the moment. We cannot feel the divine orchestration as it quietly aligns the circumstances, the people, and the opportunities that will eventually lead us to exactly where we are meant to be. But trust me and trust yourself, there is a divine timetable at work, a sacred choreography in which every encounter, every challenge, every joy, and every heartbreak is perfectly placed. Consider the seed planted in the soil. It does not demand the sun, nor does it plead with the rain, yet it waits patiently. It does not question the length of days, nor rush the seasons. It simply grows in its own time, reaching down for nourishment, reaching up for light, unfolding slowly, deliberately, perfectly. This is how God's timing works in our lives. We are like those seeds. We may feel buried, overlooked, forgotten, or delayed. Yet we are moving, stretching, and transforming in ways that are unseen, preparing for a blossoming that is inevitable when the time is right. There is a sacred integrity in this process, a natural wisdom that knows when the roots are ready, when the leaves can reach toward the sun, when the fruit can ripen. And in this, we learn the humility of patience, the power of trust, and the beauty of surrender. Human beings by nature are impatient. We want what we want, and we want it now. We measure success by immediate results, by instant gratification, by outcomes that our eyes can perceive. Yet life asks us to step beyond the limits of our vision, to walk in faith, to trust the unseen, and to embrace the truth that God's timing is always impeccable. Perhaps you have waited for a job, a promotion, a relationship, or a breakthrough. Perhaps you have asked for doors to open and wondered why they remain closed. Perhaps you have prayed for guidance and felt that your prayers have floated into silence. In those moments, it is precisely when faith is tested, when patience is refined, when trust becomes a conscious act, that the perfection of timing is revealed. Every delay, every no, every period of waiting is not a punishment, it is a preparation. Life does not rush, it does not stumble, it does not misplace what is meant for you. Sometimes we see others succeed, and we compare our timeline to theirs, forgetting that their journey has been uniquely orchestrated, that the universe has aligned the exact circumstances that they needed to reach their moment, and that our own alignment is unfolding simultaneously, invisibly, and beautifully. Trust that what is meant for you will not miss you. Trust that even if the answer seems delayed, it is not denied. God's timing is perfect because it is informed by knowledge we cannot yet perceive, by wisdom that surpasses our understanding, and by love that ensures we receive exactly what we need. Not too soon, not too late, but precisely at the right moment. We are invited to release our anxiety about timing, to step away from the grip of worry and fear, to cultivate patience as an active practice rather than a passive waiting. This means showing up each day with intention, doing the work that is ours to do, nurturing our gifts, strengthening our character, and preparing our hearts for the arrival of what is coming. It is a delicate dance between effort and surrender, action and trust. We plant the seeds, we water them, we give them sunlight, yet we cannot command the growth. The miracle happens in the space between our labor and God's orchestration. And it is in this sacred tension that faith is born, that resilience is honed, and that hope becomes a living, breathing force within us. Patience does not mean stagnation. It does not mean ignoring the signs or opportunities that present themselves. On the contrary, patience demands discernment, awareness, and courage. It means recognizing that some things cannot be rushed, that forcing outcomes often leads to brokenness, and that waiting is itself an act of faith and wisdom. Life's timing is rarely our own, but it is always perfect. Imagine a river flowing toward the ocean. The water may swirl around rocks, cascade over falls, and take unexpected turns, yet it never fails to reach the sea. So too do our lives move inexorably toward the fulfillment of our purpose, guided by a hand unseen but infinitely sure, a hand that knows the exact path, the exact moment, the exact conditions for everything we are meant to receive. It is in the waiting that our character is strengthened, our perspective expanded, and our soul prepared. We learn to value the journey as much as the destination. We learn that timing is not about the calendar, the clock, or the human schedule. It is about alignment, readiness, and divine orchestration. There is a sacred rhythm to life, a rhythm that we can sense if we pause, if we listen, and if we open our hearts to the truth that everything comes when it is ready. And when it arrives, it will arrive fully, perfectly, completely, in a way that surpasses what we could have demanded, imagined, or even hoped for. It will not be too little, too late, or inadequate. It will be the exact provision, the precise answer, the perfect gift, and the timing will feel like nothing short of miraculous. Every story of triumph, every tale of breakthrough, every moment of grace bears witness to this truth. The singer who waited years to be discovered, the student who labored in obscurity before a scholarship arrived, the parent who prayed for a child who finally entered their life at the exact moment when love and readiness converged, all are evidence that timing is never random. The universe conspires in alignment with divine will, and though we may grow weary, though doubts may rise like waves against our shores, though we may question and fear, the perfect moment will come. And when it does, it will arrive with clarity, with abundance, with joy, and with a sense of completion that leaves no room for regret or resentment. We are invited to trust this process, to trust ourselves, and to trust the God who orchestrates all things. We are invited to live fully in the present, to embrace the waiting, and to use this time not as a void to be endured, but as a canvas to be painted with growth, learning, and love. Our faith is strengthened when we recognize that perfection lies not in the speed of arrival, but in the accuracy of the moment, in the fullness of the gift, in the wisdom of the timing. The moment that is too early may not have been ready to receive the blessing, and the moment that comes too late may not have the same impact. But the moment that arrives in divine timing is always flawless, always sufficient, always life-changing. Even in the face of uncertainty, even when the path seems unclear, we are reminded that the divine hand is at work, that every delay is purposeful, that every challenge is preparatory, and that the exact provision will arrive when it should. It is in these pauses that we find our strength, in these moments of waiting that we cultivate resilience, and in these intervals of uncertainty that we learn to hear the quiet voice of God whispering, "I am here. I have not forgotten. Your time is coming. Trust me. Be patient. Receive. To live in alignment with this principle is to release the compulsion to force outcomes, to surrender the illusion of control, and to embrace the rhythm of life with grace and faith. It is to know that the universe, in its infinite intelligence, has measured every detail, balanced every variable, and orchestrated every moment so that what is meant for you cannot miss you, what is destined for you cannot be delayed, and what is yours will arrive at the precise, perfect moment. And so we move forward, not with anxiety, but with anticipation, not with fear, but with faith, not with doubt, but with certainty, knowing that the perfect timing of God is at work in every aspect of our lives, in every prayer we utter, in every dream we dare, in every step we take, in every challenge we face, and in every moment we live, ensuring that what we need will arrive exactly when it should, exactly as it should, and with all the fullness of divine wisdom and love. Faith begins with listening. This is the quiet, gentle, yet powerful truth that many of us overlook in our hurried, noisy lives. We live in a world that prizes action over stillness, that celebrates words over silence, that rewards doing over being. Yet the deepest forms of faith, the kind that transforms lives and shifts destinies, are born not in constant motion, but in stillness, in listening, in the sacred act of opening our hearts to a voice far greater than our own. We are taught from childhood to speak, to assert, to argue our way into existence, yet we are seldom taught the profound strength that resides in the act of listening. To listen is not merely to hear words, it is to attune the soul to the subtleties of life, to perceive the invisible currents that guide our paths, to discern the quiet instructions of the divine that come in whispers, in pauses, in moments of reflection, and in the gentle nudges of intuition. When we listen with faith, we acknowledge that the answers we seek are not always external. They do not always come in the form of loud declarations, instant solutions, or obvious signs. Often they arrive in the hush of early morning, in the silence of a quiet room, in the pause between breaths, in the space where thought dissolves and the soul is fully present. It is in these moments that God or the universe or the higher power that watches over us speaks most clearly. But to hear this voice, to truly receive its wisdom, we must learn to be still. We must learn to put aside the noise of doubt, the clamor of fear, the incessant chatter of the mind, and open ourselves fully to the guidance that flows in silence. Faith is not a demand for proof. It is a patient, deliberate, and tender listening to what is, even when it is unseen, unheard, or unspoken. We often confuse busyness with productivity and noise with understanding, yet faith calls us to a different standard. Faith calls us to listen, to observe, to wait with open hearts. It asks us to recognize that silence is not emptiness but fullness. It asks us to understand that the quiet moments are pregnant with possibility, that in the stillness our souls are nourished, and that clarity arises not from speaking but from receiving. When we allow silence to speak, we cultivate awareness. We begin to perceive patterns in our lives, signs that we might have missed in the rush, opportunities that we might have overlooked, and lessons hidden within challenges that at first seemed insurmountable. Faith listens and understands that life is not a linear path of cause and effect, but a vast, interconnected tapestry in which timing, intuition, and preparation all intertwine. Consider the way a child learns to trust. A child does not demand answers. A child observes, listens, and absorbs. A child has not yet been conditioned to fill every pause with words, to fear the quiet, or to distrust the unseen. There is a purity in this kind of listening, a receptivity that is uncorrupted by skepticism or expectation. Faith invites us to reclaim this childlike openness, to step into a space where we can hear not only the guidance of the divine, but also the whispers of our own hearts, where intuition, wisdom, and understanding merge into clarity that is unmistakable. We cannot rush this process. We cannot force the voice of God, the guidance of our soul, or the alignment of life to speak on our timetable. We must wait with patience, with humility, with attentiveness, knowing that every pause, every quiet moment is a sacred opportunity to receive, to learn, and to grow. Listening is an active engagement, not a passive act. It requires attention, focus, and courage. To listen with faith is to place trust in the unseen, to trust that the answers will come in their own time, in the form most suited to our needs, and in ways that may defy our expectations. It is to acknowledge that we do not always know the path ahead, that our understanding is limited, and that the wisdom of the divine surpasses the bounds of our reasoning. This listening is not only about hearing guidance in moments of prayer or meditation, it is about tuning our entire being to the signals of life itself, the lessons hidden in failure, the blessings veiled as challenges, the guidance that comes through relationships, experiences, and circumstances. All are forms of communication that require faith to interpret. When we fail to listen, we risk missing the very things that have been prepared for us, the doors that are opening even as we push against the walls, the guidance that has been sent to us in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. We may speak, we may act, we may plan, but without listening, our efforts can be misdirected, our energy scattered, and our intentions disconnected from the flow of life. Listening is the act that aligns our will with a higher purpose, the act that transforms our effort into manifestation, and the act that allows faith to grow from an abstract belief into a tangible, lived reality. Silence is the soil in which faith grows. In silence, we are able to confront our doubts, to observe our fears, to understand the limitations we have imposed upon ourselves, and to surrender them. The world often mistakes noise for progress, thinking that the louder we speak, the harder we push, the sooner our desires will materialize. But true progress is cultivated in the quiet moments of reflection. When we listen deeply, when we discern the path that is aligned with our highest good, and when we allow the voice of guidance to shape our choices. Faith listens because it knows that timing, alignment, and clarity cannot be forced, they must be received. Listening with faith also transforms our relationships. When we attune ourselves to the subtleties of communication, to the spaces between words, to the unspoken emotions and intentions of those around us, we cultivate empathy, understanding, and compassion. We begin to perceive the needs of others, the guidance of mentors, the lessons embedded in encounters, and the opportunities for growth that arise in community. Faith listens not only to the divine, but also to the echoes of wisdom in the world around us. And in doing so, it becomes a conduit for grace, insight, and transformation. Faith that listens is resilient. It does not crumble in the face of uncertainty. It does not demand immediate proof. It does not react in panic or frustration. Instead, it observes, it waits, it trusts. It understands that guidance often arrives subtly, that the answers we seek may be revealed gradually, and that the process itself is a teacher. The act of listening shapes character, molds patience, and instills a quiet confidence that the journey is unfolding exactly as it should. Faith recognizes that even in apparent silence, there is communication. Even in delays, there is preparation, and even in absence, there is presence. The practice of listening requires discipline, awareness, and intentionality. It demands that we quiet the mind, release preconceived notions, and suspend judgment. It requires us to step away from the habit of reacting, from the compulsion to fill every gap with noise, and to embrace the humility of waiting. In this humility, we find strength. In this waiting, we find clarity. In this openness, we receive the wisdom that transforms doubt into certainty, fear into courage, and confusion into direction. Faith listens because it understands that life is a conversation, not a monologue. The universe, the divine, the higher power, whatever name we give it, speaks to us constantly. Yet we can only receive its messages when we are attuned, when our hearts are still, when our minds are quiet, and when our spirits are receptive. It is in the act of listening that faith becomes alive, that it moves from belief to understanding, and that it manifests in our choices, our actions, and our experiences. We must remember that listening does not always produce immediate clarity. Sometimes the messages we receive are cryptic, symbolic, or require reflection to understand. Yet faith trusts the process. Faith recognizes that every word, every sign, every silence has meaning. The practice of listening trains us to discern the patterns, to interpret the subtleties, and to act in alignment with the guidance we receive. It teaches us that the journey of faith is not only about outcomes, but about cultivation, growth, and awareness. When we embrace the discipline of listening, we find that life begins to speak in ways we could not have anticipated. Opportunities arise, obstacles become lessons, relationships deepen, and our sense of purpose clarifies. We begin to recognize that faith is not a passive hope, but an active engagement with the world, a conscious choice to attune ourselves to the divine rhythm, a commitment to hear, to understand, and to act in accordance with the wisdom that is revealed. In every quiet moment, in every pause, in every space between action and thought, faith is speaking. It tells us to trust, to wait, to prepare, to open our hearts, and to embrace the unknown. It reminds us that the answers we seek are not always immediate, that guidance is often subtle, and that the power of listening surpasses the power of speaking when aligned with the divine will. By listening, we cultivate patience, understanding, discernment, and a deeper connection to the forces that shape our lives. Faith begins with listening because listening is an act of surrender, an acknowledgement that we do not have all the answers, and a willingness to be guided. It teaches us that true power is not in commanding outcomes, but in receiving wisdom, in allowing silence to instruct, and in trusting the timing, the process, and the unfolding of life. Through listening, faith becomes tangible, actionable, and transformative, guiding us toward clarity, purpose, and alignment with our highest potential absolutely. Here's the full expansion off keynote number 3. Prayer is not just words. It is a bridge to divine guidance and clarity in Dr. Maya Angelou's style, around 2,000 words, without headings or ending sentences. Prayer is not just words, it is a bridge to divine guidance and clarity. This is a truth that carries with it both simplicity and profound depth, a truth that reaches into the very core of our existence, whispering that communication with the divine is not limited to the mere utterance of phrases, the repetition of familiar sentences, or the ritualized patterns we have inherited. Prayer is far more than a mechanical action. Prayer is a sacred dialogue, a heartfelt connection, a meeting place between the human spirit and the infinite, a bridge that links our mortal understanding to the eternal wisdom of God. To pray is not merely to speak. It is to open the door to guidance, to open the channels of insight, to align our intentions with the higher forces that govern life, and to receive clarity in the midst of confusion, light in the shadow of doubt, and strength in the depths of weakness. The power of prayer lies not in the perfection of the words we speak, but in the sincerity of the heart that utters them. Many of us have approached prayer as if it were a checklist, reciting familiar lines without presence, without awareness, without genuine engagement. Yet the divine does not require eloquence. It does not measure our faith by the beauty of our speech or the length of our sentences. The divine responds to the authenticity, the vulnerability, the honesty of the soul that turns toward God in search of guidance. In this way, prayer becomes a bridge, not a bridge of stone or steel, but a bridge of connection, a bridge of intention, a bridge that allows the voice of the divine to flow into our consciousness, illuminating the paths before us, revealing choices we had not seen, and offering comfort, insight, and understanding beyond our human capacity. Prayer as a bridge requires presence. It requires that we step away from the distractions of the world, that we silence the noise that surrounds us, and that we place ourselves fully in the space of listening and receiving. It is not enough to speak, we must also listen. Prayer without listening is like a letter sent into the void, a message that travels but never returns. When we pray with presence, we allow ourselves to feel the response, to sense the guidance, to perceive the subtle ways in which clarity arrives. Sometimes it comes in the form of intuition, a thought that enters the mind unbidden, a sense of direction that feels aligned with the heart. Sometimes it comes through people, through circumstances, through doors opening where we least expected them. Prayer prepares us to recognize these responses, to understand them, and to act in accordance with the wisdom that is revealed. When we approach prayer as a bridge, we understand that it is a dynamic process, a living interaction between our will and the divine will. It is a space in which we bring our questions, our doubts, our hopes, and our fears, and in return, we receive guidance that clarifies our path, strengthens our resolve, and illuminates our purpose. This bridge connects the finite with the infinite, the temporal with the eternal, the human heart with the vastness of the divine mind. It allows us to step beyond the limits of our understanding and into the realm of possibility, where insight, wisdom, and clarity flow freely, and where the solutions to our most pressing challenges often appear when we least expect them, but are most ready to receive them. Too often, we underestimate the power of prayer because we measure it by outcomes that suit our timing, rather than by the alignment it creates within our lives. We pray for specific results, and when they do not manifest according to our expectations, we doubt the efficacy of our practice. We question the presence of God, and we feel abandoned. Yet prayer is not about forcing outcomes or bending the universe to our will. It is about creating a channel, a conduit, a bridge through which divine energy, wisdom, and clarity can flow. The timing, the form, and the manifestation of that guidance may differ from what we imagine, but it is always present, always active, always transformative when we remain open and receptive. Prayer as a bridge also teaches patience. It teaches us that clarity does not always arrive instantaneously, that understanding is cultivated over time, and that guidance often unfolds gradually in layers, in patterns that require our attention, reflection, and discernment. When we pray, we plant seeds of intention, faith, and alignment. These seeds do not bear fruit immediately. They germinate, grow, and mature in accordance with divine timing, revealing insights, solutions, and opportunities at exactly the moment when we are ready to act upon them. The bridge of prayer is therefore not just a crossing point, it is a journey in itself, a process of growth, of transformation, and of deepening connection with the source of all wisdom. To pray is to engage fully with our own inner truth while simultaneously opening ourselves to the vast intelligence of the divine. In this dual awareness, we learn to navigate life with clarity, discernment, and purpose. We come to recognize that obstacles are not always barriers, but sometimes signposts, that challenges are not punishments, but opportunities for growth, and that the guidance received through prayer is tailored uniquely to our journey, perfectly suited to our needs, and always infused with love and wisdom. The bridge of prayer is not generic, it is deeply personal. It is an intimate space where the voice of God speaks directly to our circumstances, our hearts, and our minds, offering insight that no human counsel could replicate. Prayer also has the power to transform perception. When we approach life's challenges with prayer, we begin to see beyond the surface, beyond immediate appearances, beyond what is tangible and measurable. We begin to perceive the deeper currents, the unseen forces, and the divine patterns that shape our experiences. This clarity allows us to act not out of fear, not out of impulse, not out of desperation, but with wisdom, confidence, and alignment. We recognize that what may appear as delay, disappointment, or difficulty is often part of a larger, perfectly orchestrated plan, and that the guidance we receive through prayer is the map that leads us through uncertainty to understanding. The bridge of prayer also cultivates humility. It reminds us that we are not the ultimate architects of our fate, that we are participants in a larger design, and that the answers we seek are most fully received when we release the illusion of control. Prayer is a practice of surrender as much as it is a practice of seeking. We bring our desires, our intentions, our concerns, and our gratitude to this bridge, and in return, we are invited to receive what is offered with openness and trust. It is in this exchange, this dynamic relationship, that faith deepens, wisdom expands, and clarity emerges. Through prayer, we also cultivate resilience. When life presents trials, confusion, or heartache, the act of turning to the divine provides a source of strength and clarity that fortifies the soul. Prayer connects us to an intelligence greater than ourselves, an energy that guides, supports, and sustains us even when circumstances seem overwhelming. It is a reminder that we are not alone, that guidance is available, and that the clarity we seek is within reach if we engage with the bridge intentionally, sincerely, and patiently. The bridge of prayer is also a bridge of alignment. It aligns our thoughts, emotions, and actions with the higher will, creating coherence between what we desire, what we understand, and what the universe orchestrates. When we pray with presence and intention, we move from a fragmented state of being confused, anxious, reactive, to a centered state of awareness where guidance becomes discernible, decisions become clearer, and purpose becomes more tangible. Prayer transforms the chaos of uncertainty into the clarity of direction, the noise of doubt into the sound of guidance, and the fog of confusion into the light of understanding. Furthermore, prayer allows us to cultivate gratitude as a lens for clarity. When we pray, we often express our needs, our hopes, and our concerns, yet prayer also invites us to acknowledge the blessings that are already present. Gratitude opens the heart, softens resistance, and creates a receptive space in which guidance can flow more freely. When we approach prayer with both seeking and gratitude, the bridge becomes stronger, more vibrant, and more transformative, allowing insight, wisdom, and clarity to cross over effortlessly into our lives. The practice of prayer as a bridge is not limited to moments of crisis or need. It is a continuous, living connection, a habit of engagement that nurtures ongoing alignment, awareness, and clarity. Through consistent practice, we learn to recognize guidance before it becomes urgent, to perceive opportunities before they become obvious, and to act with discernment before circumstances force our hand. Prayer, in this sense, is both preventative and responsive. It strengthens the spirit, sharpens perception, and prepares the soul to navigate life with grace and wisdom. To understand prayer as a bridge is to recognize that clarity is not always immediate, that guidance may be subtle, and that the process itself is sacred. Every word spoken, every thought offered, Every moment of silence observed contributes to the strengthening of this connection, the deepening of understanding, and the illumination of the path. Prayer bridges the gap between uncertainty and insight, between longing and fulfillment, between fear and courage, and between the human and the divine. It allows us to move with confidence, knowing that we are supported, guided, and illuminated in every step we take. Gratitude amplifies blessings. This is a truth that often eludes the hurried, the distracted, and the restless. Yet it is among the most transformative principles that life offers. To acknowledge what we have is not a mere act of politeness or social decorum. It is a profound spiritual practice, a deliberate recognition of the gifts, opportunities, people, and experiences that shape our existence. Gratitude is the lens through which we view life, not as a series of unmet desires, unfinished goals, or unfulfilled expectations, but as a continuous unfolding of abundance, love, and provision. When we cultivate gratitude, we shift our attention from scarcity to sufficiency, from longing to appreciation, from lack to recognition of the fullness that already surrounds us. It is in this recognition that the amplification of blessings begins, a multiplication of joy, a deepening of connection, and a refinement of perception that allows us to receive what is coming with open hearts and open hands. Gratitude is not a passive acknowledgement. It is an active, intentional engagement with life. It requires that we pause, reflect, and consciously note the gifts that are present in our days. Many people live as though life is a series of demands, a checklist of deficiencies, a catalog of what is missing. They focus on what has not yet arrived, what has not yet been accomplished, or what has been denied, and in doing so, they obscure the blessings that are already theirs. Gratitude calls us to reverse this focus, to stop measuring by absence and to start measuring by presence, to recognize the small mercies, the quiet joys, the ordinary wonders that form the fabric of our lives. When we do this, we activate a kind of spiritual magnetism, a force that draws further blessings into our experience because the energy of acknowledgement resonates with the abundance that is already at work in the universe. Consider the simple acts of daily life, the warmth of the morning sun, the sound of a loved one's laughter, the nourishment provided by food, the shelter offered by a home, the opportunity to breathe and move, the chance to learn and grow. These are not trivialities, they are miracles that too often go unnoticed. Gratitude teaches us to see these ordinary moments as extraordinary, to recognize the divine orchestration embedded in the seemingly mundane, and to understand that when we appreciate what we have, we open ourselves to receive more of what life intends to offer. The acknowledgement of these gifts is the key to amplifying blessings, because energy flows where attention is given. What we focus on expands, and when we focus on what we have, we multiply its value, its meaning, and its potential to transform our lives. Gratitude is also a recognition of timing and process. It reminds us that what has arrived in our lives has not come by chance alone, but through a sequence of experiences, efforts, and divine orchestration. We recognize the hands that have lifted us, the moments of learning that have shaped us, the challenges that have refined our character, and the presence of guidance that has led us through uncertainty. By acknowledging the journey, not just the destination, we deepen our understanding of blessings, and in doing so, we create a receptivity for future abundance. The act of gratitude aligns our perception with the rhythm of life, reminding us that what is coming is not separate from what we already have, but is part of a continuum, a divine unfolding in which the acknowledgement of present gifts becomes the doorway to future provision. When we cultivate gratitude, we also cultivate humility. To recognize the blessings in our lives is to recognize our dependence on forces greater than ourselves, on people who have contributed to our journey, and on circumstances that have conspired to bring us to this moment. Gratitude softens the ego, dissolves the illusion of self-sufficiency, and opens the heart to receive more fully. It is a recognition that we are part of a larger design, that our lives are intertwined with countless others, and that the abundance we experience is both a gift and a responsibility. By acknowledging what we have, we acknowledge the source of life, the generosity of the universe, and the presence of love informs both seen and unseen. Gratitude amplifies blessings because it shifts our frequency, our energy, and our perspective. When we dwell in thankfulness, our hearts expand, our minds clarify, and our spirits become attuned to abundance rather than lack. This energetic shift allows us to perceive opportunities that were previously invisible, to recognize solutions that were previously obscured, and to receive guidance that was previously unheard. Gratitude creates a fertile ground for manifestation because the universe responds to the vibration of acknowledgement, the resonance of appreciation, and the intention of openness. In this way, blessings are not simply gifts that arrive externally, they are experiences that we attract, cultivate, and co-create through the conscious practice of gratitude. The practice of gratitude also transforms challenges into lessons, obstacles into opportunities, and setbacks into preparation for greater fulfillment. When we acknowledge what we have, even amidst difficulty, we begin to see the hidden patterns of provision, the unexpected sources of support, and the potential for growth embedded within adversity. Gratitude does not ignore reality, it reframes it, allowing us to perceive life through a lens of abundance rather than scarcity, through a lens of possibility rather than limitation, and through a lens of hope rather than despair. This reframing amplifies the blessings already present and paves the way for what is coming to arrive in alignment with our readiness, openness, and awareness. Consider the way a tree bears fruit. The roots draw nourishment from the soil, the leaves capture sunlight, and the branches stretch skyward. The fruit that appears is the result of a continuous process, a culmination of growth, care, and alignment with natural forces. Gratitude functions in a similar way in our lives. By acknowledging what we have, by appreciating the nourishment, support, and growth that surrounds us, we cultivate the conditions for further blessings to emerge. The energy of acknowledgement flows outward and returns multiplied, much like the sunlight captured by leaves that transforms into sweetness within fruit. The more we recognize, appreciate, and honor the gifts in our lives, the more the universe is inclined to provide, because the vibration of gratitude attracts the continuation, expansion, and deepening of abundance. Gratitude also fosters connection, both with ourselves and with others. When we acknowledge what we have, we recognize the presence of love, support, and care in our lives. We become more attuned to the contributions of those around us, more appreciative of relationships, and more conscious of the ways in which we are sustained. This recognition amplifies blessings because it transforms the energy of our interactions, creating a ripple effect of generosity, kindness, and mutual support. In this way, gratitude is both personal and communal, influencing not only our perception of abundance, but also the flow of blessings within the wider web of life. The act of acknowledging what we have also cultivates patience and trust. When we recognize the abundance already present, we are less likely to be anxious about what is yet to come. We develop confidence in the rhythm of life, in the timing of the universe, and in the alignment of divine provision. Gratitude becomes a stabilizing force, a grounding principle, and a lens through which we navigate uncertainty with assurance and faith. By appreciating the blessings we hold today, we prepare ourselves to receive the gifts of tomorrow, knowing that the universe responds to our openness and readiness with perfect timing and perfect alignment. Furthermore, gratitude encourages mindfulness. It calls us to inhabit the present moment fully, to see the richness in the ordinary, to savor the subtle joys that might otherwise pass unnoticed. In this mindful acknowledgement, we amplify blessings because we recognize their significance, we honor their presence, and we allow their energy to resonate within us. Gratitude transforms mere existence into a conscious experience, a celebration of life, and a conscious engagement with the flow of abundance. Gratitude is a bridge as well, connecting what we have to what is coming. It creates a continuity between present sufficiency and future provision, between recognition and manifestation, between awareness and reception. When we acknowledge our blessings, we open the doors for new blessings to arrive because the energy of gratitude signals readiness, alignment, and receptivity. The universe responds not to our complaints, our fears, or our sense of lack, but to our acknowledgement, our appreciation, and our intention to recognize the abundance already present. In this way, gratitude is both a practice and a power, a discipline and a force, a lens and a magnet that draws life into harmony with our highest good. To live with gratitude is to live with eyes open, hearts soft, and spirits receptive. It is to understand that every moment, every person, every experience carries a lesson, a gift, or a blessing. It is to recognize that abundance is not merely the accumulation of possessions or achievements, but the awareness of the richness inherent in life itself. The more we acknowledge, the more we are attuned to the flow of blessings, the more prepared we are to receive, and the more capable we become of amplifying the joy, love, and fulfillment that are available to us in every moment.